Hmm. Hmm.
All right, and there we are. We are live on a Tuesday night for Talk Time with TJ Triple T, number 224, coming to you live from Dallas, Texas. Good to see you guys here. It's already April 14th, 2026, if you can believe that. Time is just ticking. I don't know, is time going faster, or is this just something that we remember hearing our parents say, and all of a sudden we're starting to say the same thing? Speaking of which, out on YouTube land, for those of you that are joining me live, I appreciate it, and I get the chance to say, hi, Mom. Mom's up in Minnesota. And appreciate all you guys joining in. For those of you watching the recording for the first time, I also appreciate that. If you got any questions, please reach out to me. And for those of you in YouTube land, I'd appreciate it if you do the YouTube favors that don't cost you anything other than a few clickety clicks. Click that subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when we're back on the air. Hit some likes on some of the videos and leave me some comments. I'd really appreciate it. And if you get some stuff out of out of the content that you think is helpful to others, please do me a favor and share it. I'm not doing this for glory, fame, or the the cash, because there isn't any. But I just want to help people. You can also check out my website at www.theTSWB.com, THETSWB.com, the tall, skinny white boy. That is he, and he is I, and I am him. And I've been the tall, skinny white boy since way before the internet. So whatever else you find on the internet for TSWB, that is not me. In fact, I've seen a couple. Don't go there. So the tswb.com, that's my website. You get a chance to take a look into some of the stuff I'm blessed to help people with, such as depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief, helping people with, I work with sports athletes all the way from beginner up to pro level. I also work with a lot of corporate clients and been doing a lot of relationship stuff yet. So if you know somebody who is having some challenges in a relationship, they either don't want to be single anymore and they're tired of dating the same person in a different meat suit, or they're having some challenges in their current relationship, have them get a hold of me. I offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's your chance to sit down and chit chat with me for 30 minutes and go over some of the challenges you're up against. If I feel that we're a good fit, I will let you know. But I also promise you, if I don't think that we're a fit, I will let you know, and I will do my best to find the right person to help you get over the challenges that you're up against. That being said, time to move on to the tie of the week. I've been doing this since our first episode in 2024. Got another collection of poo on my tie. For all my poo fans out there. And if you run across a cool tie and you think that it should be on the show, I'd appreciate it. You can send it to me. I will gladly give you a shout out. Add to the collection. In fact, my collection got big enough that the rack that I had them on broke and all fell down, and I lost track of which ones I've wore this year and which ones I haven't. So we'll just start over again, and I might have to add a few myself just to have some new ones to show you guys. But for those of you that are joining for the first time or watching this for the very first time, the way it works, this is a 2-hour show, and the first hour I do my best to try and get through 3 topics that I've picked out during the week. And then when the first hour is up, we do a little change, change up. We do open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic. And there I let people on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody else has answered, if I feel there's something I can still add to the mix, that's when I throw in my 2 centavos. But before we get into the topics, I also like to see if anybody has anything cool or exciting they want to share from the last 7 days since we were here. Anybody got anything to share with the group? Yes, Mark.
Well, I got my taxes done on Monday,
Oh,
and usually a sad day when I have to pony up money to the government. But this year, I was at net zero.
net zero.
Yeah, I had I got back roughly 3,500 from the feds, and I had to pay 3,500 to the state. So
Hey?
net for the first time in many a year, I didn't have to give the feds anything.
Yeah,
So that was a good day,
that
you
was
know.
a good day.
So especially paying quarterlies now, and but I have a good accountant. I know he's a good accountant because he's willing to go to jail for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, even when I had my photography studio, uh, I had a CPA do my taxes, and I had a few people go, "Well, couldn't you save money if you did it by yourself?" I said, "Yeah, but one thing I've learned about if you do your own taxes and you screw up, that's tax evasion. If you have somebody else do it and they screw up, you hired the wrong CPA." So it was kind of a little insurance uh, plan and he found some deductions that basically he paid himself by finding the deductions. So yeah, that all worked out.
but people have been sporadically telling me this week about TurboTax horror stories.
Uh,
So I remember Money Magazine every year, and they may still do it. They took 3 families, same documentation, same income, everything. They gave it to 3 uh, supposedly very good attorneys, CPAs, and then they all came up with a different number. That's how the tax law is. So, um, but this guy came highly recommended. He's not cheap, but at least I avoid any TurboTax nightmares.
there you go. Mike added, for those of you that are watching on YouTube or watching the recording, one thing you miss is the comment section. And Mike put in there, businesses need a good accountant, saving me thousands in taxes. Yes, very much so. Another thing I forgot to mention, for those of you that see my eyes bouncing all over the place, it's because I have a 50-inch monitor. And so I've got people from there, over to there, up to there, and down to there. So, and I also have a surveillance monitor over here. So all sorts of fun stuff going on. But anybody else got any stuff, some cool stuff to share? Yeah, no?
I'm just bragging about my new
I
mug that I just got minutes ago from eBay. In my defense, I was left unsupervised.
Yes,
That's a good one.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Damn right.
I went for an echo under stress on Friday, and though I don't have the detailed result yet with the numbers, I was told that my heart function has, quote, significantly improved.
Yes,
We're getting there. We're getting there slowly but surely.
awesome. And looks like Guillermo just logged in. Hola, amigo. Anybody else before we get on with the show? All right, well, I guess it's time to get into the mix. Tonight's topics: toxic love, strong people, and angst. Diving right in, toxic love. Oh my goodness, while I was thinking about this one, and for those of you that have been around Planet Triple T for a while, you know that most of my topics come from my work with my clients, and this today is another one. And so the toxic love, there are so many different ways that this can be taken. I'm sure that all of you that heard this probably had some idea of where this could go, what this could be, and we're going to go a couple of different ways on this tonight, and I'm sure you guys will all have one that'll make sense to you. But toxic love, we've all seen it. If there've been, even if you've been in the quote unquote perfect relationship, there were times where it maybe wasn't quite so perfect, or you could basically say you loved them to death. And the challenge is the ability to recognize it and then figure out where to go with it. One of my clients this last weekend has been working on themselves quite a bit and had an event with their kiddos, and the ex showed up. And the kiddos, shall we say, went back to old habits and gave the ex more than ample attention, according to my client. And it was kind of further verified when my client had to go out, regroup, and go through a lot of the techniques that we've worked on and developed for them. And when it came time to leave, part of their defense that they chose was to just go stoic, tell everybody, catch you later, turn around and walk out of the event. And two of the kids managed to catch what happened and contact my client and checked in on them, and as such they realized what had happened with their siblings. And it took my client a while to recover from the downward spiral, and realizing that the toxic love for their kids, which sounds terrible in a way, is part of what led to the issues. because they had forgotten how the kids were programmed by the ex. The two oldest, bless you, were able to, the two oldest have been on their own long enough to be able to see what was actually happening from the outside and realize what had happened to their siblings as far as programming. And that's how they were able to understand what was happening. And so when we start talking about toxic love, and one of my other clients has a child who right now is married. They got 2 kids, and the marriage is not going well. And my client, of course, wants to see it survive and is telling them, you do whatever you have to do to make it work, and you this and that. And there are so many thought processes about situations like that. And you have to take every one of them separately. But when we were talking about it, I reminded them that the kids can feel the energy. The parents can be the best actors in the world, hiding the challenges that they have for each other, but the kids pick up on the energy. And so with the work that I do, and I'm hearing some of this advice and stuff, and it's just like, yeah. Can you have your kid get a hold of me for just a little bit, like a free consult, just to talk about a little bit of this and that? And so I brought this topic up because of we've all been on I'm going to go out on a limb and say at this point, we have all been on the inside and the outside of toxic love relationships. And we all know that you still have to realize again that every one of them is different. It's programming from, and one of the things my client said was with their child who's with their kid, their grown adult child who's going through the marriage issue, is he is fighting with his mother and she is fighting with her dad in the relationship. And neither one of them really understand that, from what my client can gather. They're just both angry and having challenges with communication in that. And because there's 2 kids involved, it makes it even more challenging for them. Any comments, ahas, epiphanies on this so far, on this topic? Mark?
Couple thoughts. The first one is there's a noted phenomena. It's called parental alienation syndrome. In fact, lawyers have used it as it's found its way into the courts, where one parent tries to alienate the children from the other parent after a divorce. And goes like, so if the one parent buys them a new bike, oh, that bike is lousy, that's awful, I'll get you a much better bike. Not that they
Yep.
ever do, but anything good the other person, um, does has to be undermined, basically. And they've used it a lot. I get, a fair amount in court. So with custody and all that stuff, if they can prove parental alienation syndrome. The other thing you said that triggered a squirrel was that um, you know to the extent I understand the female psyche, I won't say I'm perfect at it, but you know, uh,
I
a
love
woman
when
has
he
to
talks about the female psyche.
a woman has to rewrite her entire history with the guy to turn him into a bad object so that she can feel justified, uh, you know, uh, hating on him and doing things to sabotage the relationship he has with his children. And I come from personal experience. I don't know how many times I heard, "Yeah, I never loved him," after 50 years of marriage.
Yeah.
Um, you know, she rewrote her entire history with a guy just so that she could feel justified hurting him back because, again, I never loved him. So, full personal insight there.
Yep.
So,
Great stuff. Mr. Duncan, good to see you here. Lenora.
Good evening, afternoon.
Oh, I have lots of thoughts. I think the first and foremost is, what do you consider toxic? Because so many people, and I think it's right up there with toxic positivity or the toxic masculine or the toxic feminine. Like, it just gets so thrown around. So I think it really needs to be very personalized as to what does someone think is toxic, and to talk about it with somebody who is a neutral party, because there are very many times where I can interpret something incorrectly because that was the first thought I stopped at. And there are very many times where my significant other can interpret things, but that can be said also for friends or for family, anybody that you're in a relationship with. So what is it, and how do you define it as toxic? And is there room for modification? And Mark, I love that you pointed out that people, or male, female, whatever it is, can rewrite their entire history. And I think they do that out of protection because they don't want to feel shamed, judged, criticized, whatever it might be. Most recently, I came across a video by Chase Hughes, and he was talking about shame, and that I think it's the people will basically go to the end of the earth to protect themselves without even necessarily knowing it, just to avoid shame because of our evolution. And how if you were shamed from the tribe, from the group, from whatever, even though it wasn't official death, it was still like you were out. And so people really do go into protective mode, and to cut somebody off and say, I was married to them for 50 years but never loved them, I think that is very much a blockade, or a blockade as in putting up a wall, that they're working extraordinarily hard to protect themselves, to not be made to feel bad for the decisions or the conversations that they had. And this is where I think people get into a whole lot of trouble, where you'll get into groups where they'll just talk about a relationship and they will badmouth and bash the bananas out of the person that they're in a disagreement with to their friends. So let's say, like, I was upset with somebody and then I collaborated with like 4 other women, and then they were all and picking them apart. And I don't do that. I will say I have been a part of those things. And when I was very young, it was like, young as in like 18, 19, 20. It was the thing to do. Not just it was the thing to do, it was what I was taught to do. So that would also be toxic, but you don't know about it until it's pointed out to you and you start to have those moments of reflection. So it can get very, 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 very out of hand. And I'm very glad that we're here, but also like given the fact that we all have side conversations and we have this level of awareness that we can hold this level of let's not commiserate and bash the person. Let's work to figure out where this person is, what's hurt, what's going on, how can we help calm them, get to a grounded, clearer state of mind, then move forward.
Yes, so many good things. Both of you, thank you. And bringing up the history, it's interesting. You know, we had what was it, 2-3 weeks ago we had romancing the past about people, you know, taking the red flags and painting them pink and all the above, and yet the with the toxic part there, I think when people are hurting, they look back at all the things that went wrong. And then part of the recovery is realizing you didn't stay with that person. You didn't start hanging out with that person because they were a monster, because they were a jerk, because they did everything wrong. You didn't stay with them long enough to get married or have kids because they were an absolute loser, jerk, all the above. And so one of my clients that I'm working with, we actually went back and as part of the forgiveness regime or regiment to just allow them to move forward, they wrote down a list of all the good things about their ex and all the good things about their parents. And one of the things that came out of it, especially with their father, they started remembering things they hadn't thought of for decades, about the times that their pops would take them to work with them and show them off and introduce them to the coworkers and how fun that was, and some of the other really cool things that they got to do with their pops. Were there times where, you know, the pops was a jerk? Well, yeah. But in that discovery, what they came up with was their pops loved them the best that they could, the best that they knew how. And the other stuff was remnants or byproducts of how they were raised as well. Kind of like garbage in, garbage out. So their parents did the best that they could with what they knew, with the instructions that they were given or not given. And at this point in my client's life, they're like, I can't undo anything in my past anyway. So I may just as well remember all of the best stuff and allow myself to become a better person, because there was a lot of really good stuff that happened to me when I was a kid. Any thoughts on that one, Lenora?
There used to be, do you guys remember Take Your Daughter to Work Day?
Yes.
I loved Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and I got to leave school or not even go to school to go to take your daughter to work day, which was so much fun. And I'm pretty sure it was in April. And when you had mentioned, go to work with parents or get shown off or something like that, I remember that. That was a lot of fun. When it comes to, and I recently saw something by Tony Robbins, and he was saying, because there can be so much going on when we look at our past, and especially the big theme in self-help or self-improvement or hypnosis can be forgive them rather than recognize what TJ's phrase is. They were always doing the best they can with the tools, time, knowledge, energy available to them. If they could have done better, they would have done better. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thought and statement and idea and concept. And rather than recognizing like, oh, I have to forgive them or I'm going to completely shun them and eliminate them, I can go neutral. It is what it is. I can recognize that for better or for worse, they help shape me into the person that I want. And that way I found it to be personally very, very helpful over the years. Because there are many things that I was very frustrated with just from the environments that I was in. And when I was able to really start practicing the art of going neutral and recognizing people were doing the best, I think it really helped release a lot of that hurt and take the good and find it and cherish it and appreciate it and value it more that way.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely right. We have that choice. Unfortunately, not enough people recognize it.
And I think they can quickly get into that toxic place of cut people off. And it's not to say certain people don't need to be cut off. And it is what it is. And that's how the person draws that boundary. But there is becoming a growing theme of and it's not no contact.
Mm-hmm.
No contact kids, no contact parents, things like that. So, if it's right for the person, it's right for the person. And that's all anybody can do. It's the best they can.
And a squirrel ran by with a great idea, and then it just kept running. So if he comes back on the loop around, I'll bring it up. But Mark, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I have two competing thoughts. I watched was a show on TV, and the woman was saying, because her, again, her the guy she never really showed some interest in, who just kept being there, again, and she never showed any compassion or kindness towards him. And then when he died, that can be toxic, she blamed himself, and she mouthed the belief that all love is unrequited. And that can get you into a very toxic place.
Mm-hmm.
I have a belief that is empowering, that love is a gift. It's like giving somebody, a present on their birthday. If you get something back on your birthday, it's a plus, but love is a gift you give to other people. And, if you get something back, great, so it doesn't have to be, unrequited, but but if somebody is holding that belief that all love is unrequited, unreturned, that can become very toxic.
Yes. Yep. And the squirrel came back realizing he didn't stop in time. The other dangerous part is the pity party, which can unfortunately become a comfort zone. And especially if you get the chance to have other people jump on the pity train with you. And like Lenora said, you get the group of the peers, and oh, you poor, and this, oh, and that person, and da 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 da, and pretty soon the the toxic spewing, the toxic energy almost becomes intoxicating. And Renee put in the comments there, toxic love feels very unbalanced, volatile, and fragile. Love has conditions attached to it, where healthy love feels stable, grounded, and unconditional. Yes, absolutely. Lenora.
I think, oh, I have so many thoughts about love. Bananas, fudgesicles. Mark, you said something. You said unrequited love. Love is a gift. Love is a gift. Hilariously, that's a very specific alarm. Very specific alarm. Okay, so I had started, slight tangent. I don't know why it like settled in my brain and then in my body a few weeks ago, and I started to recognize when we start to really notice life as a gift, and then to start really deeply recognizing, you'd be like, yeah, of course, this person I love is a gift. But when you really recognize, like, oh my God, this person is a gift, and I get to spend time with them, and I get to experience them, and I get to see them in so many different ways. I literally, hand to God, I was crying for several minutes just at the idea that people are a gift, and it's not always deeply seen and felt. It's so natural. It's so like, da, 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 I gotta go to the grocery store, and it's so like, oh yeah, they're in my life, rather than really recognizing, holy cow, they're really a gift. And then also adding to that, recognizing that you yourself are a gift to that person. And when you start to do that, for example, you wake up tomorrow morning and you recognize and you just sit with the idea of, this is a gift that I get to wake up again. I get to step out of bed, go to the bathroom, come do your regular routine. Oh my God. And I get to then go greet somebody else in the morning, or text somebody, or send a good morning text. Or I know Mo's not on here. He sends good morning texts, or like multiple pictures, and they're so funny. And they're so much fun. And I look forward to them, and I tell them, I'm like, these are so great. Thank you for sharing them with us. And really, if you start to move about the world, recognizing that it's a gift, I think also with what Renee said, oh my gosh, gorgeous, Renee, toxic love, very unbalanced, volatile for sure. So that's the difference. I think that you can see toxic love and then really start to let it settle into your body, that you are a gift, and that the people around you are also gifts. Holy cow. Told you it was tangent.
Very well said.
Bananas and
Snacks, the cat is a gift.
Yes, he is. He's not here right now.
One of the other things that came up when I was doing this, a number of people I know had a tough weekend.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mo, who had to say goodbye to his 14-year-old dog this weekend. And as a pet owner who also lost a dog this weekend, you get that when it's you get the feeling so strong, and you're like, that's it, I'm never doing this again, I'm done, us dog owners, how many dogs I've had in my life, and I've had some amazing dogs. I've been so blessed. And every time I lose one, I'm like, and that's it. I'm done. No more dogs. I've had it. I'm over it. I can't deal with this emotional robbery, whatever you want to call it. But I also know, after doing this so many times and having so many dogs, yeah, I know the universe is up there going, we heard you, and we've got 12 more in the lineup for you, so just get ready. We've already picked out your next one. And so you can also go, is that a form of toxic where you're like, if it's taken away from me, I don't want anything else. I'm done. Could be. But you also have to take the time to go, well, have I been here before? Oh, my, have I ever. and I'm still here. I'm still alive. And so I know that it's, here we go again. And the only way through is through. Mark.
Let's see. When Lenora was talking about going to the grocery store, a squirrel ran by, and my wife would do the grocery shopping. And there's so many subtle ways that people say they love you. Okay. And, she'd come home and I'd put all the groceries away. And, I'd notice that she'd buy the organic stuff for me. And, she'd make a point of, getting the stuff that she knew was important to me. So as I'm unpacking the groceries, I'd take out the organic milk and go, oh, that's love, and I'd put it away. And I'd do that throughout because it was a gift. It was a way to show she loved me in a very subtle way. I think toxic love is loud, brash, and sometimes it's, again, it can be very, I don't know, that, it can be very offensive, but there's so many different ways to tell another person you love them, and I think the Japanese have 300 different words for the word love. So the love you have for your dog, the love you have for your wife, the love you have for your children, and I'm not sure 300 actually covers the broad expanse of how we show love. So, and I love you guys. So,
Back at you. Thank you.
But that's what I thought of was, like I said, she'd bring home the groceries and I'd take them out. Oh, that's love. Put that one away. So, but yeah, that's why I love her. One of the 8 million reasons.
Great answer. Appreciate that. And just like that, holy cow, we've got 16 minis left in the first hour. So any other additions, comments to toxic love before we try to fit in at least one or two more topics tonight? Yes, no, maybe so. All right. Well, how about we move on to strong people? And here again, where there's so many different ways to take it. There's Jim Strong and Army Strong and mentally strong, and there's also the emotionally trained or evolutionary trained. I think we're going through an interesting time now, especially being there's so much stuff recorded and pictures and videos and you look through, you watch old movies and old documentaries and all of this stuff, and you realize that we're not the same people our grandparents and our great grandparents and our great grandparents were. And it got me thinking about, when you travel around, and I've been blessed to travel to a number of different countries, and not just the tourist areas, but back in the, shall we say, the original non-tourist areas, and realized that there were, when I was traveling, some places that are still living the way my grandparents did. Or possibly my grandparents when they were quite young. And it got me thinking about how happy are they? And why? And we think, oh, well, I've got this, I've got my latte maker, and I've got Amazon, and I've got Pandora, and I've got a car with cruise and GPS, and I've got one of these dumb phones, and I've got all sorts of really cool stuff. And these people know how to make cheese, and know how to can, and know how to hunt and forage, and they can tell you which items, when they're walking out in the woods, you can eat, and which ones you better not eat, because that would be a bad day. And along with the theme, I don't know if you guys have seen these videos. I may have sent one to one of you guys or something, where they showed these hand strength test machines, and they walk around in the big bodybuilding gyms and hand them to these muscle necks that are built, they can't even hardly touch their back. And these guys squeeze it for all it's worth, and they get 90 pounds, 80 pounds. They're like, oh, look at that. Oh, Max, come here. Oh, yeah, I get the, oh, Max got 92. And then they took it out to ranchers and farmers and blue collar workers. And the funniest one was this guy's wife saw this challenge and ordered one of the grip testers and gave it to her husband, and she goes, and she's recording it, and you can tell this was not scripted, and she goes, honey, squeeze this thing. And he's like, what? Just grab it and squeeze it. He goes, why? Just do it and squeeze it as hard as you can. And he grabs it and he goes, he goes, I'm sorry, I broke it. And a bunch of these other blue collar guys, they're knocking 125, and I mean but they're not built big and muscular. They're just, not unless they saw a reason where they could make money doing it or had to save somebody. And on the same line, you see mentally strong people who can go through events and seem to just take it, process it, and go, okay, and move on. And you have another person right next to them, and they need all week or longer and therapy to detox and get past it before they can even function. And so I brought this up as a topic to see from you guys, if you could pick your strong in different areas, what do you think you would want to change? And if you did, what might it cost you?
That's a good one.
I hear the gears grinding already, like. And I think part of it comes down to what has a person already survived, and what have they witnessed, and what do they know that they're capable of. It's kind of like, do you guys remember a movie from back in the day, dating myself, Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy and God, who else was in it? But the two
Dan
rich
Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd, that's right. And two rich business guys see Eddie Murphy as a kind of a street scam artist pretending to not have legs, begging for money. And they said, I bet you if we took Dan Aykroyd's guy who grew up pomp and protected and Harvard and all the above, and made him homeless, and took this homeless guy, what do you think would happen? And they placed a bet on it and switched the two, not realizing the street smarts that Eddie Murphy's character would bring into the business world when given the opportunity. But how quickly Dan Aykroyd's character would break when having the luxuries pulled from him. You guys are kind of quiet.
I haven't seen that movie, so I'll have to get back to you on that one.
It's a classic. It's very funny. Mark.
Yeah, you asked the question, where would I want to be stronger? Maybe, I guess in a scale of top 10 things that are important to me, money's like number 8, and it would be nice if I could be stronger financially, even though I've, but I think I am strong enough. There's an old joke. I just want the chance to prove that money can't make me happy. So maybe if I were to acquire, amazing wealth, I'd have to be strong enough to stay the happy person I am.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's interesting to watch people that get what they hope for, especially when you see the documentaries on the people that win big on the lottery and find out that they are not mentally strong enough or mentally prepared for that identity change?
So, when I was in the hospital and they were telling me some of my results a few months ago, one of the doctors came in. He was explaining about like ejection fraction and things like that, and he said, "So what?" He said, "So what this means is you have a naturally weak heart." And without skipping a beat, I said, "You mean physically, right?" And he went, "Well, yeah." Okay, just so we're on the same page, because you don't know, bro. I've been through some shit, and I'm pretty fucking strong, you know.
Yes. Amen. Amen. Yes. And that leaves us 4 minutes, and I'm just going to sneak in angst real quick. One of my clients that I was working with brought up the fact that they were feeling a lot of angst lately. Actually, they're not the only one. There seems to be a lot of it going on right now, whether it's the state of the world or the energy and with the new year of the fire horse and all of this stuff. There's so much stuff going on. But as they were describing this, a line out of a movie that hit me like a 2x4 when I heard it. The scene was a guy is walking down a dock, and he is not having a good day. In fact, he's not having a good week. And as he was walking down the dock, a guy that knew him looked up at him and said, "You look like somebody who is homesick for a place you've never been." And it stopped me right there. I went, wow, I've been there. And it seemed like a really good definition of angst. You're muted.
I was saying that's interesting.
Oh,
And then I thought maybe I didn't completely understand the idea of the word angst. And when you first started, when you mentioned that many people were experiencing angst, I thought, oh, this is 2026.
yeah.
It's very different from when you had mentioned the way other people had grown up. Very, very different.
Yeah. And so again, you look like someone who is homesick for a place you've never been. And just feeling that energy of this ain't it. This is not it. If this is it, then there's got to be someplace else. And I've been there. You guys know enough about my story and some of the things I've experienced and survived, and you sit there and sometimes you can overthink it. You're just like, what is this all about? Why, what did it, and question, and it so easily takes you out of being present. It's one thing to be homesick for a place that you grew up or you spent time in or that you loved, or for whatever reason you don't have that there anymore. But when it's not where you're at and you don't know where it is, I think that can be quite a challenge. And that's where I invite, people that are going through that to reach out to somebody. whether it's me or anybody else on the call. Just say, hey, this ain't it. At least I don't think it's it. If it is, what am I missing? But what we are missing is more minis in this hour. Took us right up to the top, and I'm going to let Mark make his comment because he's got his hand up, and then it'll be time for hour two. So, Mark, what you got?
Well, to tie up this evening in a bow, okay, a bright, pretty bow. Do you have the strength to withdraw, find your way out of a toxic relationship, and deal with the angst that you might have to deal with? The buyer's remorse. So, just incorporating all three of tonight's topics, just winding it up with a little bow.
Ding! Awesome.
That's it.
And there we go. That tops us off at the top of the hour, and it means that we are moving into hour number two. For those of you that missed the introduction earlier, or you're watching for the very first time and didn't catch it earlier, this is where we change things up. It now is open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic, and I let the people on the call answer first because I like to learn. And if after everybody has answered, if I feel I still have something to add, that's when I'll throw in my 2 centavos. So, who's gonna start us off with the first question or topic of the evening? And for those that are new, a lot of people on this call actually have books with questions for Triple T, but they do the polite chipmunk, and they're like, well, I didn't want to take it away from somebody. So, Lenora, what you got?
Hi, Nancy. When it comes to the book situation, here's the thing that I've gotten. There she is. There she goes.
She was.
I've gotten away from, which makes me sad. I have apparently taken a slight hiatus from journaling, and I have gotten into favoriting, like reels or ideas, or taking screenshots of it among the other pictures that are on my phone. So it becomes like a total cluster. That being said, one of the things that I had come across, and I thought it was very, very fun. And if you guys are open to the idea, like, let me know how it goes. I think a lot about identity shifts. And so apparently there's 2 thoughts coming in. So one was, especially when we talk about like shifting your thinking, I started to put, I am no longer the person that identifies as such and such. I am now the person that does it, or I am the type of person that does. So that was one of the things for the identity shift. And the other thing I came across, I did not come up with this, but there was, somebody had said, like, set 7 days. And for 7 days, all your focus is to be delusionally happy or delusionally over the top with positivity, and to notice how your life changes. And I found it very interesting because I think this can also cross slightly into toxic positivity, where there's nothing wrong. And people used to accuse me of wearing rose-colored glasses. I know you were all shocked by such a statement. But Mark, it looked like you were literally covering your mouth from laughter. But anyway, even if you took the idea of saying, you know what, for the next 7 days, I am going to be delusional about whatever it is, something that brings you joy, something that brings you happiness, whatever you want to focus on it. And I just really like the idea of delusional still within the idea of not going into toxic positivity. One thing that you could do is even, I'm going to be delusional with or over the top with the intention to focus on being joyful and finding joy. And the reason I think that is because there are many things, especially when you're in, I don't know, this human experience and you have a social interaction with another human, we can quickly take things the wrong way. And if we can recognize how they're experiencing things is how they're experiencing it, how I am is how I'm experiencing it. And I'm going to be delusional in the idea of whatever they said that I thought maybe I took the wrong way, I'm going to take it the best way possible. And I'm going to carry on and try and find as much joy as I can. Just thought it was a fun idea to play with. I'm open to your thoughts. Toxic, not toxic. Fun, not so fun. What are you thinking?
Good question. Who's got an answer? Mark.
First of all, it's okay to be delusionally happy, Lenore, because that's my normal waking state. And it's a lot of fun to be delusional. Again, you've got happy, delusionally happy, and then you would use a toxic happiness, but it would be psychotic happiness, which is spinning realities that don't exist. So, that's how I define toxic positivity. So I tend to stay away from that. But once you get into that delusional happiness state, trance, whatever you want to call it, it's you don't want to get out of it. It's fun. So when you practice that as a mindset, I've had some less than positive things happen to me in the last week or so. I had a wheel fall off my car
Yes.
as I was driving, but
I love that
I
there's
thought,
somehow a chuckle in here. Is there a story that this got relayed
well, I
and
was
all is well? Is it a
yeah,
love map?
I was coming down the highway and the car started to shimmy, and I thought I had a flat tire, so I pulled off an exit and I pulled into a gas station and boom, the back tire fell off. It could have fallen off when I was going 55 miles an hour.
It is joy
So
filled to have been parked and have it fall
yes,
off.
yes. And I got some people to help me out, and I got the car, the wheel back on, and there's nothing wrong with the wheel. It's just the kid I paid to
Not do his
uh,
job?
well, he didn't seat that tire correctly as he was swapping tires for me. But I didn't blame him. I said I blamed the car, it's the car I'm trying to get rid of. So like an old girlfriend, I figured she had
Don't
one
lead
last
with that
shot.
on the sales page, by the way.
Yeah. She had one last shot at me and she took it. She almost put me into the woods, if it had come off at 55 miles an hour. So even that I can laugh about. And so, again, had I my washing machine bit the big one on Saturday, but okay. Now I get to go shopping for a new one. So
I wonder who
I
you'll
said,
meet at the store.
yeah, well, I already did that. Like I said, I got it delivered yesterday, and but I just again, I try to interact with people and try to infect them with my delusional happiness, and people are always like, you're always smiling. What are you, high? I'm like, yeah, on life. So,
Because you're a gift.
well, like I said, but that, I could focus on the negative. I could focus on the less than positive things, but I don't choose to. So, again, but like I say, there's happiness, delusional happiness, and then there's toxic happiness or psychotic happiness, where you're creating realities that you have to live in that don't reflect everyone else's. But yeah, like I said, I can reframe nuclear war. So our children, Lenore, will live to be 10,000 years old after nuclear war. Okay, so our progeny will be fine. Um, yeah, I can reframe, yes, but I can take the data and and twist it in a very positive way, and
Take the
and
data.
that's what I try to teach people is things are only as bad as you tell yourself that they are, and again, and but that idea of practicing that state, be careful because it does become addictive, being toxically or I should say delusionally happy all the
Yeah.
time.
And I had to chuckle because when you were talking about the psychotically happy, you guys, I'm sure you guys have seen the meme from whatever cartoon show it is where the little yellow character is in the burning house going, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Place is burning up. And yes. Lenora.
I love that you had mentioned about data. You said the word very specifically, Mark, data. And there was something that I think this is super helpful, especially when we can possibly get wrapped up in the idea of failure or like, I failed again, or it didn't happen again. And I did not make this up. I heard it from a reel. And military, especially, I think it's very specifically Navy SEALs, instead of failure, they say data received. Data received. And they modify it. And as I'm saying this now, like starting to take my own words, and they're coming back to me in my own head. And somebody had messaged me today when you had said how you can reframe anything. Somebody had beautifully messaged me saying mistakes are proof that you are trying. Keep going. And I liked that a lot. I've heard it before and it just brightened my day. So whether you want to call them mistakes, whether you want to call them failure, however you want, or whatever it is you want, Mark, you do have a superpower of reframing. And I think a number of people on here do. I know TJ definitely has a superpower of reframing. I know Mark for sure does. Holly, and absolutely the very spectacular ninja over there in England, Elijah. You have a phenomenal way of reframing. And especially when he starts to intentionally pause and likes to bend your mind a little bit as to why you might think the way you might think.
Elijah.
Hey, so I was going to just keep it short and say all states are somewhat delusional, and then just kind of leave it at that. But I think I'll go on to say that even if you don't recognize that you're in a state, or that, like whatever reality you're living in, it is a delusion. Like whatever you see around you, it's certainly, well, if it's not a delusion, it's certainly an illusion, right? And the fact that you kind of believe that this is the way things are, that's delusional. So, I don't really believe in a lot of the things that most people believe in, because I think that's delusional. I mean, the things that people believe in. So, for example, well, I don't really want to offend anybody, so maybe I'll stay quiet because it gets a bit close to that line, like I'm calling people out. What I'm really trying to say is all the shit in this life is made up, and if you're not enjoying it or having it the way you want it to be, then why not just make up something else that suits you better? Because you're already being delusional, so why not be delusional in a direction of your choosing? So something like that, I think, is good enough, mild enough, without me rattling too many feathers.
Thank you, brother. I always appreciate you on here. Mark.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Elijah said is, again, we all live in our own little bubble, you know. We create our own reality. And when I realized that I was making all this up, I was like, hell's bells. This was many years ago. I said, if I'm making all this up based on what my submodalities are telling me, I can make it anything I want. I can make it a great place to go play and have fun and help people every day. Or I can make it something less than positive and walk around, grumpy all the time. But I'm making this up. So I choose to make this a great place. I choose this place. I choose this to, connect to people. And I don't know what that word means, Lenora. I don't know what failure, that word I got out of my dictionary a long time ago. Because there is no failure. There are only life lessons and benchmarks. My wife taught me that. Like you said, they don't talk about the child failing in school, that they failed to meet a particular benchmark. So I don't talk about failure, but yeah, like I said, I choose to live in this reality, that I've created. It's a pretty cool place. Come visit sometime. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yep. Learning opportunities, we call them, or at least that's what I call them. Failure to reach the expectations that I had expected, but it was a learning opportunity. Any other ahas, epiphanies, inputs on that subject? Was it time for the next topic? Who's got something for us? I know you guys do. Mark.
I don't want to jump in, but I did have a download from the universe last week amid all the other stuff that was going on. And I realized that we have a lot of people, like I said, that caught into, radicalism and whatever, I don't want to get political, but radicalism is, disaffection with the way things are, But what I realized is, especially in this country, we have it really well. We have it really good. Like you said, we are a very prosperous society by and large. And that's what kills radicalism is prosperity. And I wanted people's thoughts about that. The fact that, again, there's always going to be poor, there's always going to be homeless, but we have prosperity. We have it better than any other place in the world. And that's why radicalism can't get a foothold here, because people are like, yeah, get up in your soapbox, I gotta go to work. I gotta go make the donuts. And that's why I think radicalism can't really take hold here in the way that some people want it to, because I think prosperity kills radicalism. And I wanted people's thoughts without getting political.
Well, that's kind of a slippery slope. Who's willing to slide into this one? I think the word itself offers up the slippery part of it, because I've seen, you can be radical about anything.
And also, like, radical according to whom?
Yes, that too.
Like, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So, you know, you could say that they're blowing people up and killing children, but are they not also protecting their own families? You know? So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other.
That's again, the word radical. It's one of those labels. Nothing means anything until you give it a label, but there are some labels that freedom, happiness, joy, love, they can mean 100 things to a single person, much less a collective. And so I think it's a little slippery on the slope here.
Well, I was focusing on, just prosperity and how, when a country or a nation is prosperous, that, it doesn't seem that, whether or not they consider themselves freedom fighters or what. I just, in a prosperous nation, country, whatever. I just think that, if people are allowed to think what they want and, again, but as far as, again, if they have, other ideas, it's okay, but you're not going to get a lot, in a prosperous nation, I don't think you're going to get a lot of people buying into their position. But it's the prosperity, I think, that, you need to focus on, and that's, if we can make the whole world prosperous, and I think we'd probably see a lot, we'd still see radicalism, but I don't know if there would be, a lot of people, that would cotton to it, basically, to radical thoughts or like radical ideations, but it's prosperity I was focused on, not radicalism.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've seen history has also shown that there were plenty of very very prosperous countries that took their turns. Rome, the Roman Empire, the Egyptian Empire, can't think of them now, in Mexico, but the Ottoman Empire, a lot of them went through the cycle of prosperity, and I that's where there's so much girth for pontification. Yes, thank you, Guillermo. The Aztecs, for their time and day, they were extremely prosperous. But I think now, with where we're at with technology, to be able to, we can communicate from the middle of a farm in Kansas to somebody in a farm in New Zealand, and have somebody from Taiwan on the call as well. So we've got that ability that they never had before. But knowing the stuff that Chase Hughes teaches with psyops and all of that, that's where we have to be very cautious and aware of what's happening around us, I think. So with your permission, I think I'm going to move us into another topic quick. Who else has a question or a topic that we can bring up? Again, I know some of you have books of questions and topics, so flip it open and drop a finger and tell us what you came up with. Yes, Lenora.
I did like what Elijah had shared about the illusion, because the illusion, the delusion, the trance, I agree very much with it. And I do know people who you might consider go more to, no, I don't want to say an extreme, but they're very careful about what they watch. They're very careful about staying off of social media. And I think even Jim Carrey had said, once you start spending time by yourself, you really start to see how helpful it can be, because you're constantly having people tell you their views, their perspectives, their values. So I definitely, I found that awesome, great, excellent point, Elijah, because it really is whether you are in your own illusion. And that's so funny that you had mentioned it, because I definitely had that written down. And the reason I had it written down is because people can tell you what's going on in their life. And sometimes, especially for us empathic people or people who were taught to be people pleasers, we took that on thinking like, oh, I have to be the people pleaser now. And now somebody's giving you or sharing with you a problem or something that's going on in their life. And you're like, oh my God, I have to fix it. Well, you were taught to be a people pleaser, and now you're being made to feel like a people pleaser, but also now you're feeling like you have to go in and fix it, and things can get very, very haywire. So I had started to write down illusion, that it's somebody else's experience, and I don't have to get wrapped up into it. And by wrapped up into it, it's not to discredit it, it's not to dismiss it, it's to help ground myself in saying, I don't have to have this angst or this anxiousness or this tightness in my chest. I don't need to buy into this. I can listen, and I can have that boundary that says, I understand that you're going through this. And I think about this multiple times a day. Thank you, Jim Rohn. Every day, stand guard at the doorway of your mind. But it's not just your mind as in the way that I initially took it, which was very surface. But each conversation that you're having, and then even the conversations that you're having with yourself.
Yes.
It's really to pay attention to the voices that are calm, that are steady, that are grounded in what you feel like is right and true for you. What you feel like is the illusion that you're in, or the trance that you're in, or the delusion that you're in, whatever word that you want to say, what is right and true for you. And, I heard that phrase in this, now you're just watching my thoughts unfold in real time. I heard that phrase, what's right and true for you, from YouTube, from Dr. David's stuff years and years ago. And I would have an argument in my head about what was right and true. Like, is this true? I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is right and true for me, because I was so wrapped up in all these voices, and there was just such a autopilot of chaos going on. And now when I say what is right and true for you, when I'm talking to myself or when I'm noticing it, it's very, very different. And I experience it very, very different. And I think that is a great thing, which goes back to this whole human experience. You're here to, at least some people have said, you're here to understand you in another view, in another lens, through another experience. You as in you, the universe. Okay, I'm done.
That was awesome. Did you have a question that you could bring up for?
No, I'm open to your thoughts. I know there was probably supposed to be a question in there, but I think I had a question and then I somehow answered my own question.
Oh,
That's never happened before.
there is that. Well, then that means that we either need. Does anybody have any aha epiphany? There, Mark's got it. What you got, Mark?
Just want to ask Lenora, when did you decide, or when did you realize that you weren't in the, that some of the voices needed to calm the heck down and others needed to be encouraged to come out and play?
That's a great question. I do love voices, and I do now. I do. I've definitely become quite the detective because I'm like, who's talking over there? Not just with myself. I will hear it with other people, but other people don't realize that there are multiple voices, and they're like, it's me talking, and I'm like, it's not you talking. It's a different version of you talking. So it's hilarious to have that conversation. Um, I did not realize how inconsistent or how not chaotic, unsure, how much I questioned myself and doubted myself and couldn't figure out up from up and down from down. Could not, super, super lost. My what would you call it? Like come to Jesus moment. I had a lot. I had a lot of rock bottoms. But when I realized at the end of the 5-day training for Dr. David Snyder that I took online in 2020 in November, and the lovely Holly Bigelow was the Zoom master there. And that's when I met Holly at the end of the 5-day when I realized I still had a cluster of problems. And I had already been working on solving those problems for quite a while. And when Dr. David had said, reach out to our clinic, we offer a complimentary consultation. We'll do our best to help you. And if not, we'll show you where to go next. And I called. You can't see, but back there is a curtain. Behind that curtain is my gym. I called from my gym, shaking, leaving a voice message for, I believe it was probably Stephanie Ski, but no, it wasn't Stephanie. It was somebody at Action Care who got the message, which probably sounded like a ball of nerves on the verge of tears. That said, I'd like to set up an appointment. Can somebody give me a call back for a consultation? And then a couple of days later, I was connected with TJ, and thankfully TJ was willing to take on the cluster. And I was at the time. And he laughs because it's true. But those were my moments. How about anybody else? That's a great question, Mark. What were your come to Jesus moments?
Crickets?
Well, I going to meet TJ and Dr. David, again, and the silo was identity by design. And it had a huge impact on my life. Again, some of the you know couldn't understand why so many people were unhappy, and I was happy. So I realized that we all create our identity by design. So that was kind of my come to Jesus moment. Is that I and I don't have to fix everyone. Again, I just have to you know walk my path, and people will come into my life, and I will try to help them to the penultimate of my abilities. And but yeah, that whole idea that again, you can design an identity for yourself, consciously, not leave everything to chance and experience. So yeah, that was kind of my moment.
You met one of your friends there. I think his name was John. Did you meet him there, or you met him a couple of years after,
I
right?
met John, like I said, John Masters.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one in Vegas, and I was just, like I said, I was blown away by in the vessel he occupied. What an amazing, powerful person he had created. Because he was very ordinary. He was large. He was older. He was overweight, but the personality contained within that vessel was absolutely stupendous. And I was gifted to, call him friend, and we continued a relationship. I'd call him and we'd discuss things, and you know, he and he liked a lot of my insights, again, the stuff that I had kind of figured out on my own. And but it was just, again, within just such an ordinary vessel that this power could exist. So, and I would dream of some one day becoming as powerful as John was. So, and but you wouldn't know it to look at him. So, um, um, just
Yeah.
you never know what people have inside the and that's the good thing about doing our work, is we learn as much as we teach. So
It's one thing I love about meeting people. You absolutely cannot judge the book by the cover. I've met some of the most, what would you call it, well-dressed, groomed, and you start talking to them and realize that they've got the personality of a wet paper sack. And you look at some other people and you're like, that hillbilly probably can't, if brains were dynamite, they probably couldn't blow their nose. But then you start talking to them and you realize that, oh my goodness, this person has insights and knowledge and understanding. And, like we talked earlier about strong people, it's such a diverse field anyway. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the book The Millionaire Next Door, but I highly recommend it as a reading, because it's an internal and external mindset. And when you start meeting these people, it is an eye opener. It is so cool. It is so fun. And it really changes your mindset about what money can do to people. I've said many times that money among a few other things, only makes you more of what you already are. You take somebody who is loving, caring, generous, kind-hearted, and they pump into a whole lot of money, and they just become more generous and kind-hearted. On the other hand, you take a narcissistic pencil neck dip snot and you give them a lot of money, can't stand to be around them. They're that much worse. And that leaves us with, what do we got, 19 minis left?
I think the word dip snot really stuck out in my head.
Yes, welcome to those TJ-isms. How many of you heard now in the time you've known me?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Dip snot is a new one, though.
That is a new one. Actually, that one just premiered tonight, right here on Triple T. Try to avoid dip snots in the world.
That is pretty funny.
But that means we need another topic, another question. So, who's got something? Silence. Come on, open them books. You know you got some questions. Huh?
I didn't know. I thought something was in the chat.
No, that's the problem. We got nothing but silence going on. So,
I have a good question.
thank you.
I don't know if you're gonna say thank you. How many, and it's up to you if people want to respond. They don't have to. But I had thought the other day, do you feel comfortable asking for help? As in, not like, hey, help me navigate this like past trauma. Help as in, can you help me support, or can you offer support to me on a daily basis in the way that I need? And I thought it was really interesting because everybody has a different level of what support looks like. Some people, I think, especially when we say like, hey, can you support me through this? Can you help me through this? And we think of it, at least this is where my brain goes. Let's say I was somebody who wanted to work out. Can you check in with me each day to see if I worked out? That's not the kind of support that I was talking about. It was the way that it had come up. And I'm not quite sure how it came up, but it was, I very much like to encourage people and to support people going through certain things, whatever it might be. Do people actually feel comfortable asking for the support that they need, especially when it comes to something vulnerable?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elijah.
And of course, I only speak for myself. But no, not comfortable asking at all, ever.
And I thought that, and I love that you said that, because I also came to the same thing. I'm like, who do I even ask? Like, it's such a weird question to say, hey, can you support me through this? And not just like a check-in. It was so much deeper. And I'm trying to think of the example that I was coming up with at the time. And it's amiss at the moment. But I had reached out to several people and I said, is there anything that I could support you in right now? And one person had said that I was always supportive of them. Another person said it was a weird, I gotta pull this up for you because it was a weird reply. Stand by, it's not that far, I promise. Your question above feels maybe prescriptive is the word I'm looking for. I was like, what the bananas? Prescriptive. Like that one threw me off. And I'm like, how is that prescriptive? I'm very curious to know your thoughts. But I thought it was very interesting to really ask somebody to say, hey, I really need this support, this about this very specific thing. Can we talk about it? Can you check in on me? Thank you, Elijah.
I think for me, at least in part, and the part I'm willing to speak about, because the other part, partly I don't even really know what it is, but I know whatever it is, I'm not willing to speak about it right now, at least until I figure out what it is. But in part, I feel like I might be burdening them or adding more to their plate that is unnecessary. And maybe because I know they love me, that they might feel obligated to help when they might not have time or they have their own stuff that they're juggling. And so I would rather not, quote, bother them with it. Right? Besides that, the other thing, it might be about pride or some other weird thing that doesn't really have much meaning, or a fear of perhaps having to go somewhere and open up more than I'm willing to, and that asking for help would be the initial step of what could be a slippery slope, and if I'm not ready to go all the way down the slope, then I don't want to do even the first bit yet. So yeah.
And we've got some really good answers in the comments here. Guillermo put in, sometimes yes, sometimes no, depends on the emotional connection with the other person. And Renee said, no, I test the waters before asking, and I've yet to find the right pond. And Guillermo kind of tapped into the thought process that I had was, it's almost easier to ask a stranger.
Yes.
Which is why there's professionals out there, therapists and all this stuff, because we don't have to fear about the judgment or the pressure or the if they can't help us or the help that we're looking for. Well, this is what they do all the time. Even though, I've been a barstool therapist since I was 17, and even was doing it before that, if you ask my mom, right, Mom? But even in this position, Dr. David was the first one I heard say it, and it bothered me because I didn't want it to be true. But he said, the hardest people that you'll have to deal with are friends and family. Because you can see the issues, you can want to help them, you can offer your help to them, and they don't want it because you're too close. Lenore.
I think it's I love what everybody is sharing, and it's absolutely stunning. So thank you very, very much for meeting us all here in this space. To TJ's point about asking a stranger, I agree 1,000%. That is the exact reason that when Dr. David said call the clinic, and I lived in the state of Pennsylvania and his clinic was in the state of California, in my head, the person they connected me with was at the clinic in California. Would have certainly died had I found out that he was like next door in like the neighboring block. I would have had a full-on heart attack had I run into TJ at the grocery store. Given the fact that I sought him out, sought a clinician out because they were a stranger. I completely agree with that. And I think it's almost like asking for a hug. But not just a hug. It's asking for a completely different level of space that I find that I was asking if people needed a support in, and that I was asking for myself going, do you do that for yourself? You're offering it to people. Can you even do that for yourself?
You know, hugs can be better from strangers too.
One of my squirrels just ran up and said that's why even if you have relatives or friends that have a lot of money, they'll get a loan from the bank first.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They say if you want to be remembered, borrow money from someone. And if you want to be forgotten, be the one who lends it.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I think I've told you guys the story about my pops watching me borrow $20 to the guy in town that borrowed money from everybody but never paid him back, and he goes, he's never going to pay him back. I said, yeah, I know, but from now on, if he sees me walking down the sidewalk, the same sidewalk as him, he'll cross the street to avoid me, and it only cost me $20. Different ways of looking at things. Well, we got 7 minis left. Anybody else got any ahas, epiphanies, inputs on any of the topics we got tonight? Maybe if I ask for help filling in the last 7. Mark.
Yeah, the comic who bombs on his first joke and he says, "Can I have a little, can I have a little sympathy applause?" And he gets a round of. But yeah, asking for help. Again, that's why again, people in my circle have asked me to see their kids or talk to. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm too close to the situation, and I don't want to get polarized here, because if I so doing what we do, like I said, sometimes you can't really do therapy with people that are too close. But and I don't think it's about. I think it's like I said. I think help is a selfless act. It's not really a burden when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, can you help me with this?" You know, um, you know, can all like you said, it can be a way to show you care. Basically, is like someone asks you for advice, um, or help, again, and it takes a very brave, I think, individual to recognize that they don't have they don't have the resources, skills, or ability to overcome this challenge. So they're going to ask for help, and I think that's of all the people, they selected you, and to ask for help. And I think that's, like I said, that's a gift that they think you have the wherewithal to be able to help them, so I think, again, each person has to be very strong to be able to ask for help. So those are my thoughts.
And we've got, of course, now we got questions and comments coming in. Dave, who's watching on Facebook, commented, I think a majority of people want to solve an issue themselves because it gives them a feeling of accomplishment. And I think that's true enough to be true. And then Renee asked, well, how would you vet out someone to ask help from? And I think that's a pretty broad question as well. Elijah answered, I would look for someone who I cannot anticipate. Lenora.
Something that really stands out, I still would love to walk you all through a process that somebody had walked me through many months ago, and it was absolutely spectacular. And it goes to show you.
Do it.
Well, I can't. Well, no. This is like an hour-long thing. So, it's so good. And it shows you the things that you wanted most. It shows you also things that are part of whether you want to consider this part of your life and what you seek most. So the thing that I had always known about myself is I don't like being judged. So Renee, this is to answer your question from my perspective. I did not and still don't like being judged, but now I've just learned to accept it. I'm still gotten better. At the time, was extraordinarily sensitive to shame. I could detect it a mile away. And if I would hear the slightest shift in a voice, I was out of Dodge. And what I had always wanted most, and I did not know this. Oh, Greg, the airplane is here. It's just over there for a hot second. What I noticed that I did not have the words for was that I needed emotional safety. And what emotional safety looked like to me, or as I can describe it now, is that somebody who is non-judgmental, who will not shame me, who will sit there and as I am having a full meltdown, convinced that they're shaming me, they're still talking to me saying, no, I'm right here. And you can hear and you can feel viscerally the safety in that. All that to say, in vetting someone, you might not know for a while. I have said many times, TJ was the one that helped me at, I would say, like the most awful, terrible, ugly thing that was going on in my life. I did not tell him why I was on the call for months. I think we talked for like 20 plus hours before he actually knew that I had an eating disorder and that I was having this massive issue. It took time. It took a building of trust with a practitioner, with a friend, whoever it is. That is the best way that I could explain how to possibly start to vet someone from my very personal experience.
Yep, you danced around that one quite well for quite a while until I finally realized what dance steps you were doing, and I went, but why are you dancing?
Elijah made a great point.
Yes.
In order for someone to judge me, I would first have to value their opinion.
Yes.
It's an excellent
Absolutely.
point, Elijah.
And here we are. at the close of another 2 hours, and I value your guys' opinions because I love you all, and I so appreciate you showing up here to let me do this 224 times in a row. And I hope to see you guys back here again. Thank you so much for offering up your beautiful, precious commodity of time, which, again, as soon as I figure out how to reproduce it and give it back, you guys will be the second to know. But until then, please go out, have an amazing week, be safe. Nancy, I'm glad that your house is still there after watching the weather that you must have seen last night. So, been thinking about you guys up there. And for the rest of you, go out, have an amazing week, live full throttle, bless others, take blessings on yourself, and hope to see you back here in 7 days. And love you, Mom. See you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, TJ.
Good night, friends.